Thank you very much. Oops. Thank you very much, Bill. So in case you're wondering what is happening with policies also in the African region, you'll get to watch that firsthand, because our next session in the same room is going to talk about the policy development process. And you will also have updates on by Madhvi, our host master manager team, who will be talking to you about some of the policy we call it a policy implementation report, but it's basically some of the things that Bill talked about, some of the issues that we're seeing coming up in our region. Thank you very much, Bill. That was really interesting. Now we're going to Ingrid, please.
Good morning. I'm Ingrid from RIPE NCC. The room has filled up a bit since this morning. I'll be giving the update from RIPE NCC. We've been quite busy recently. We've seen a large increase in membership. We now have over 10,000, 10,300 to be exact, if I'm not mistaken. We have regional offices currently, more IPv4 transfers. IPv6 is becoming a bigger thing, and we're working on getting our contact methods and our websites improved. As I mentioned, the regional offices, we have an office in Dubai now since 2011, and we currently have 2 Arab-speaking employees there. The main operations, though, remain in Amsterdam. IPv4, RIPE NCC ran out reaches/8 over a year ago. But we still have IPv4. We just received the /11 from IANA, according to the global policy. And every member can receive 1/22 from RIPE NCC, one for each member. And in addition, we have some address space reserved for internet exchange points. And we have some /16 reserved for special circumstances. Transfers in the region are growing. Currently, it's not possible to transfer to or from another area region, so these are just happening in the RIPE region. We've had a policy accepted that is cleaning up the policy text following IPv4 depletion. So less bureaucracy and cleaning up the text to be more appropriate to the current situation. Transfers, both size and numbers, are steeply increasing. And we separate market transfers from mergers acquisitions. Mergers acquisitions, we've always been processing these. And those are when one company takes over another company or the network is taken over. The left side, that's the policies according to, the transfers according to the transfer policy. Our membership, we have now almost 70% of the membership that holds both V4 and V6. This has been increasing significantly recently. That's partly due to the fact that in order to receive the last /22 from the last /8, a member must already have V6. So there might be a relation there. Another thing that we've been recently seeing since we reached the last bit of address space is hijacks. V4 has become more valuable, and we see some very sophisticated methods to obtain address space outside of the rules. So we're doing more thorough checks and are trying to find a balance between due diligence and being over bureaucratic. And yeah, we do our part, but we do see that the hijacks occur mostly with address space that have outdated contact information, that have not been updated in a long while. So we also focus on informing our membership and our community to make sure that their resources are up to date and to certify their resources. Since last year, we've always been performing audits on our membership and on the uses of the resources, but this has been always viewed as more time-consuming and disruptive. And now that the situation has changed, we've also adjusted our audit process to make it more efficient and more useful for our membership. So we've, in the next coming weeks, we'll start more big scale. We've done a first round of assisted registry checks, and the response was quite positive. And we help people to make sure that the registry is consistent, the information regarding their resources is correct, and we help them with their route and the RDNA's consistency if needed. Our PKI, 2,000 members have requested a certificate, and this is growing. And we've recently also started deploying certification for PI address space. So far it was only for member address space, but now non-members can also start certifying the address space. And this is quite new, so there will be more information following on that. Policy highlights. The main theme in our region is to increase the quality of the registry and to reduce the bureaucracy, the paperwork. We have 5 ongoing proposals currently, and one is to eliminate the minimum allocation size for allocations that are held by LARs. For the RIPE NCC, the minimum allocation size to issue remains a /22 according to the policy, but the allocations that have been issued can be of any size. For example, following a transfer or things like that. There's a proposal to allow PI transfers. At this moment, it's only possible to transfer allocations. And the idea is that also PI holders can transfer their resources to another party if they no longer need it. AIS number assignments, there's an ongoing proposal to remove the multi-homing requirement. IPv6 requirement for receiving the last /22. According to the current policy, an LAR must hold an allocation either from an ISP or from the RER, and this proposal is about also including IPv6 PI in order to qualify for your /22. And we have a new proposal that would cater for inter-RER transfers. We've had a proposal being discussed for the last, long period, and that didn't go through, and the proposer has now decided to start fresh, adjust the requirements, and this proposal got just published a few weeks ago. We do our regular outreach to governments, law enforcement, IGF, Net Mundial, that Adil already spoke a bit about. So mentioned a lot of operational improvements. We did the member survey, and we have 50 action items for this year. One of them is that we are investigating whether it's possible to support more languages. Currently, we only support English. And we're looking at what we can do to cater for more. We want to have more contact with the membership. Due to the increase of membership, we have a lot of new members that are not really aware of the RER system and what we do and what the rules are and how to interact with us. So we want to reach out a bit more to them. More capacity building, V6 training, roadshows. We also have an e-learning program, and we're also trying to improve our website this year. And we recently had our meeting in Warsaw. This was also the meeting where we celebrated the 25th year of RIPE. And we had a change of guards. Our chairman, Rob Blokstijl, after 25 years, stepped down as chair, and his function was taken over by Hans-Peter Hollen. We had the general meeting in Warsaw, where our members accepted the implementation of a policy regarding services to legacy resource holders. Charging scheme got accepted for 2015. So it was quite a busy meeting. The next one, oh, I see I forgot to remove some text there. The next meeting is in November. I just heard yesterday that I had to give this update, so it was a bit last minute. So the next meeting is in London in November. So you're all, if you're in the neighborhood, welcome to participate. And I'll take questions at the end, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on the global updates this morning, we're lacking Lachnik, who is not here. But if you go to www.lachnik.net, you will actually see reports of their last meetings. So we hope that next time they will be with us. And last presentation that we have on this panel today is Ayana. Can you launch the video, please? Thank you.
Hello, my name's Elise Garrick. I'm Vice President IANA at ICANN. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you today, but happily the technical staff was able to set up this remote video so that I could tell you what the IANA department has been doing. What I'd like to talk about today are the audits that we've had performed on our performances, the growth in the number of TLDs that we've been delegating into the root zone, tell you about a consultation that we've had for trusted community representatives, the implementation of the global policy, and finally, how you can contribute to the process for developing a proposal for the NTIA transition of its stewardship. So about the audits, we've had 2 audits that we've successfully completed in the last year. One is called a SOC 2 audit, and that means that basically we have a very detailed audit of the IANA systems, and it tells us things that we do really, really well, areas where we can improve, and areas that are not so good. Happily, we had all good things, and so we're very pleased that we've successfully completed this SOC 2 audit. We also completed a SOC 3 audit for the DNSSEC key signing equipment and systems. This SOC 3 is different than the SOC 2. A SOC 3 audit only gives you a pass-fail. It gives you a report that says you've passed, and if you don't pass, you don't get any report. Happily, we got our report, so that means we passed our SOC 3 audit for the DNSSEC systems. We've been doing a lot more reporting on our performance, and hopefully you have a slide in front of you that says reporting on performance. This lists many of the reports that we have published on the IANA website. You can find these reports by going to www.iana.org/performance. Hopefully you will go and check some of these reports and see how we're delivering the services to your community. The next report is about our performance standards report. This slide gives you an example of one of the reports that shows how we've met our key success factors and the key performance indicators that you all helped us to devise. We came up with these key performance indicators through public consultations with you and other parts of the community. The following slide is about the monthly Root Zone Audit Data Report. This report, which we publish monthly, will give you a list of every change that's been made to the root zone during the month. That means administrative contact changes, technical changes, and delegations and redelegations. So you can go online to www.iana.org/performance and see all the changes that have happened to the root zone. Other things that have happened over the last year, which you've probably heard quite a bit about, are the allocation of new generic top-level domains. So we have started to receive the delegation requests to put these in the root zone. We have so far delegated more than 280 new top-level domains. And this means we're doing approximately 15 delegations per week. This is a very, very big change to the root zone. Pretty soon, the new GTLDs will outnumber the previous top-level domains that we had. I did mention earlier that we were going to talk a little bit about a consultation that we've had out for the public about the trusted community representatives. These trusted community representatives are individuals who were selected to participate in the root zone key signing. These individuals dedicate and volunteer their time twice a year to come to the United States, at which point they have a key which is matched with another key, and that allows us to sign the root zone. We've been doing a consultation to see whether we should come up with a new process for selecting trusted community representatives, if they should have terms, and also if there should be some compensation for the expenses. Right now, they're volunteers, and they have covered all their expenses to participate in these key signing ceremonies. One of the things that your community particularly should be interested in is that the global policy for the recovered IPv4 address pool has been triggered. Last week, we allocated a /11 to each of the RIRs. 3 of the RIRs got a prefix for a /11. The other 2 got several individual prefixes that in aggregate equaled a /11. This means that the recovered addresses, the recovered IPv4 addresses, which the IANA department had in their pool, will be depleted probably within 3 years. We're using the global policy that you and the other 4 RIRs have created, and we're using that formula to allocate these addresses. Finally, the United States government made an announcement in March. This announcement put in place a process for the IANA department to move from under the stewardship of NTIA. That's the telecommunications part of the Department of Commerce. As a first step, it's asked ICANN to convene a group of people and a community process to come up with a proposal of how the Department of Commerce could transition from its role as steward of the IANA functions. My last slide in the slide deck that I hope that you have in front of you shows you how you can contribute to this discussion on how to come up with a proposal for the Department of Commerce. And it lists on there a mailing list where you can contribute your ideas. I do hope that you will speak and have your voice heard in this process that the Department of Commerce has put forward. I do appreciate the time you've given me to speak to you today. Again, I apologize that I could not be there in person. And if you have any questions, I believe that the technical staff there in Afrinic have set up a Q&A where I can respond to questions. Again, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Elise. And as I said before, Elise is on WebEx right now, so if you have questions, she might be able to respond to us. So we're going to go quickly to the questions and answers, and I know that from my panel already, Adil had one or two questions to some of our folks. Could you please go to the mics if you have questions? That would be great. Thank you. Adil?
Okay, I was planning to go to the mic, but I will ask it from here. My question is mainly for Bill on the ARIN report. On page 3 of your report, you mentioned something that I was interested to know a little bit about the increase in requests. But the biggest issue that you have seen is not really the increase in requests, but the increase in interaction with them. It triggers some question in my mind because Afrinic registration process was mainly based on ARIN1. When we started, we took ARIN as our model. And it is something that we are seeing as well in our region, very increasing forgery, complex requests that are not. What is the community doing in ARIN region, or ARIN is doing to address that, because it is creating a lot of frustration in our region, and it is difficult for people to understand what is going on, because those are information, there are some information that you cannot disclose related to those cases. Thanks.
So what the ARIN community is doing about this is complaining a lot. What ARIN, the organization, is doing is trying very hard to just knuckle down and do the work. The problem is that staffing up, hiring more people to try to get through it more quickly is unlikely to really produce the desired result, because the training time the complexity of the requests that we're seeing is far greater than in the past. So the training time associated with bringing someone up to speed to be able to resolve those problems is commensurately greater as well, which means that's not really a useful approach to take when these jobs would be temporary, because as soon as we actually run through that last /8, it's very likely that the number of requests will go back down again, and that we'll continue to be processing more transfers, but the amount of scrutiny needed for the transfers, I won't say that there's less fraud in the transfers. As Ingrid said, in the RIPE region, we see a lot of false documents being produced in order to justify a transfer between a defunct entity and a newly created entity. Fundamentally, this is a difficult problem, and I don't think that we're handling it particularly well. So I don't think that looking to ARIN for an example is going to serve you well. But certainly we share your frustration, and I think what this is just a time that will be difficult for a while, and it will be over soon, and then we can get on about our business. I think one thing that we've been seeing, and that I've seen in the RIPE region as well, is a sort of libertarian desire to just do away with all the rules, right? If we simply remove all the requirements, then all these problems go away, nobody has to do any paperwork, everyone gets free ponies and ice cream. This is not the way adults behave, however, right? This is not how we uphold our stewardship role. So I think fundamentally we just grin and bear it for the next 6 months.
Thank you very much, Bill. Dr. Nee?
Yeah, my name is Nikweno, a member from Ghana. I think you've started touching on the subject I wanted to ask about, but it may be worth going more directly at it. And the updates has been very useful. Both ARIN and RIPE cited, in one case, increase in fraud reports, and the other, faking registrations. So I just want to know whether all the RRs are seeing that increase in both faking registrations as well as fraud in reports, and what's the nature of these, because perhaps there's a common thing that we can do together to address them, and how are these being really resolved, and therefore is there any significant impact on your businesses as a result of the fraud and so on, and what role do you expect the community to play in addressing the fraud? Because, you know, if you are doing things for community as a steward, the last thing you want is to have fraud permeate. So I thought I would raise that question generally so any of you can respond for our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Sheun from Nigeria. I work for a university in Nigeria. One of my questions has been asked, and I think there's no need to repeat that. However, the other question I have is to Alan. I'm aware that from your presentation, you said the allocation of reserve have been triggered. However, I want to understand how that decision was arrived at, because I understand that the allocation period is supposed to be either March or September. And I also remember that there was a discussion sometime in February. So I want to know whether it was as a result of that discussion in February that now made the interpretation to happen that way it was done. My other question is in relation to the representation of board of ASO on the ICANN board. I see a lot of reappointment. Is there a tenure? Is there a tenure limit to board reappointment in ICANN? Thank you.
Thanks, Seun. Sir, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, John.
The last gentleman first on the floor. Thank you.
My name is Chris. I'm from University of Nigeria. My question is a follow-up to questions that have been asked about video. Now, the online video training plans you have, I want to know the plans you have to get this training down to most people in developing countries, because most countries in Africa, we find it difficult to access videos on YouTube because of slow networks. And so I would like to know if you have plans to organize maybe on-site training programs for people like us, either through training of trainers and centers that are close maybe to some aggregate of countries, or national training programs, as training at national levels, whether it's feasible to put up such training. That's what I would like to know for us to benefit. Because even participation in WebEx meetings is a challenge to some of us in this part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So I'm going to go back to the panel. Alan, you want to go first, and then maybe Bill and Adiel? Ingrid, you're welcome to pitch in, and Frank too, whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. Sean, you had two questions or comments. The first one was about the advice to IANA about how to interpret the global policy for post-exhaustion handling of the reclaimed address pool. There was a brief discussion on the AFRINIC policy list in February, and that was just one of the 5 regions. Similar or possibly more lengthy discussions took place in other regions around about the same time, and that was used as input to the ASO-AC's advice to IANA. We also heard from the authors of the original proposal, who said that it was their intent that the address pool could be distributed as soon as we reach the triggering event, which happened just 2 weeks ago. Then, Sean, your second question was about the ICANN board. I believe that there's a term limit of 2 consecutive terms for ICANN board members. And right now, both the board members who were appointed by the ASO-AC are serving their 2nd term. So in both those cases, we'll have to appoint somebody different next time around. There's also another rule, which is that out of the 2 board members that the ASO-AC appoints, they can't both be from the same region. They must be from different regions. Okay, I hope that answers it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I know Elisa is online. Maybe she wants to add a little bit more on Sewin's questions. Elise, if you listen to me, you have the floor.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Elise.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Elise.
Okay, great. I'm sorry, I can't tell if you're hearing me or not. So thanks. I see the thumbs up, Bill. Anyway, to the question about term limits, I want to thank Alan. I think he already responded to that on the ICANN board. And of course, the nominations are from the community, and therefore, who represents the RIRs on the ICANN board or the ASO-NRO on the ICANN board is a decision that's up to you and your nominating committees. And as for the advice we received from the ASO on when to allocate or when to trigger the first allocation from the global policy of the recovered pool, we certainly appreciated that. And we have also gone to the ASO for advice on the allocation of autonomous system numbers. As you know, there's 16-bit and 32-bit numbers. So whenever it's unclear to us what the global policy implementation should be, we do turn to the ASO, and they in turn consult with you all in their each individual communities. I hope that answers the questions. On Rochelle.
Thank you very much, Elise. I think it did.
Consult with you all in their each individual communities. I hope that answers the questions. On Rochelle.
Great. Okay. So thanks very much, Elise. That was it was great hearing you. Now I'm going to give the floor to whomever wanted to respond to the question on complexities that are arising right now in all RERs that Bill talked about, and I think Ingrid and Adiel basically asked a little bit of the same question. So who wants to go first? Ingrid? Thanks.
Yeah, I can say a bit more about hijack. I believe Dr. Nee asked about the impact of how much work it was entailed. It's so far we've investigated in our region. Sorry? Oh. We've investigated about 200 cases. Some we were able to prevent. Some we found after the fact. Some are still ongoing. It's quite labor intensive, especially since in our region we have about 74 countries with different legislations. So the checks are quite complex. In many cases, it's targeted at apparent unused address space, so unannounced, old space, the legacy space. So the investigations are quite complex to find out who is actually real and who is not. At the end of the day, I think this will continue. There's not, at least the attempts, I don't think we will be able to prevent. So I think the focus should be more on making sure that the resources are protected and are up to date, so that the opportunity given is much less. And that is also a responsibility on the resource holders itself to make sure that they maintain their data and take responsibility for their information.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. So Ingrid talked about a little bit how to resolve this, and we also heard from Bill some of the impact that is having, which is, for example, the lag time in entry of a request and resolving it because of all the process and procedures that have to take place. So what role, Bill, what role do you think the community can play in helping resolve that?
So thinking a little bit more about the longer term, not the next 6 months, but what things look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I think the efforts to simplify policy will help a lot. I think that having a very complicated policy environment with a lot of different options, a lot of ways to get from point A to point B, a lot of interpretation necessary, I think this simply opens the door to a lot of loopholes and a lot of scheming. And less policy, clearer policy will make it easier to create an unambiguous situation in which someone perpetrating a fraud is clearly doing so, is clearly in the wrong, is clearly committing a crime. And there's less likely to be a defense of, oh, this was a complicated situation, I thought I was doing what was needed. I think as the situation becomes clearer, as the policies become clearer, working with law enforcement on these cases of fraud is going to become necessary. I think there are a lot of people who think, well, you know, I may as well create this document and submit it and see what happens, because what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is they say no. But in fact, when you create false documents in order to receive something you're not entitled to, this is fraud and this is a crime. So as RARs begin to work with law enforcement on prosecuting these things, then there may be a more significant deterrent to other people committing the same crime. I think one other thing we're going to have to look at collectively or in each region is reclamation. I think that that's been kind of a bad word in the ARIN region. There are so many people who have blocks of address space that were allocated in the deep mists of time and with very little paperwork and very little ability to formally document their right to use it. So the community has been very reticent to pass policies about the reclamation of address space because there's deep ambivalence on the part of the community about what constitutes unused space or space that someone is no longer entitled to use. But I think that's the other stick that this community has beyond working with law enforcement on fraud cases, is simply reclaiming address space that has been fraudulently taken or that someone is using without a clear right to do so, or if they are operating outside the societal norms that the community establishes.
Thank you very much, Bill. Adiel, if you can go along those same lines for a region, that would be great. And maybe you can also talk a little bit about why is this occurring now? Because I see a few faces in the room here, and people may not be completely aware of why we're having so much fraud, so much, why we're seeing fake registrations. What is the issue? The original issue.
Well, as I mentioned before, there are the main reason is that people are now seeing in IP address a way of making money, because it's becoming more, IPv4 specifically is becoming more and more scarce. And in addition to that, our system has existed for a while, and people start understanding what the policy is exactly. You don't have always to be an engineer to understand what is, how you justify need, and if you want to use it for different things. So they take their chance. And as Bill said, all of the area, generally, we have not been acting as people who make law enforcement intervene, because we try to be neutral. If you are doing, let just not, we are not a regulator, we are not law enforcement agency, and that has created this a kind of trend of habit of people saying, okay, nothing is going to happen. But things start changing, because our responsibility and our stewardship has to come into play. We cannot, and that is changing everywhere, and we have to do that. So the scarcity is one of the reason for that, and that is happening even in the region where there is no scarcity, and the pressure is even more in our region, because we do have address. So because we have address, people will try all they can to get it here, and you either use it directly in other region or use different other business model of using those address. So they will do everything they want. They are ready to spend a lot of money in getting it through, and that requires a lot more attention, and also revision of policy. And I like that what Bill said. We have to candidly look at our policy and look at how we can either make them simpler so that we know how to deal with them, or try to close those small loopholes which are there that people can use. For the past 4 Afrinic meetings, we have been presenting to the community a policy implementation report, where the registration service presents the issue and the challenge they are facing in implementing different policy in their day-to-day. But as area, we cannot initiate policy. We can just report on what we are seeing and expect the community to react on that. And that is not going to stop soon, specifically in our region. In fact, we are seeing that increasing.
All right. Well, for some of the folks that are from the RIRs or even from the panelists here, isn't RPKI a technology that was supposed to deter some of the stuff that we're seeing now? Who wants to go on for this one?
Well, I mean, RPKI come after the evaluation, and what we are seeing is before, how people justify the need, and that starts from there. Now, after that, the hijack, RPKI can help the issue of hijack that Ingrid talked about, which is then the post usage of that, or people who do not get it genuinely. But the most biggest burden, administrative burden, is on the evaluation side, into the assessing the real need for allocation of because we are still in the need-based allocation. So that is.
Adil's completely right. You can't use technology to solve a social and policy problem. Taking off my Aaron hat for a moment and putting on my PCH hat, RPKI is an idiotic attempt to solve a problem of morality and rules with bad engineering, and it would be difficult enough with good engineering. So,
Tell us what you're ready.
Thanks very much, Bill. And on that very light note, oh, Frank, you wanted to talk? Thank you.
I just wanted to add to the APNIC experience. We've reached our last /8, but we still see fraud as well in terms of new memberships. Just to gain a /2022, they're spending a lot of money just to get that /22, as well as seeing fraud and transfers. We're not at that same magnitude as RIPE, where I think Ingrid was saying, was it 200 a month or 200 in total? 200 so far.
200 since September 2012, since we reached our last /8.
Okay, so we haven't seen that sort of magnitude, but it does occur, and all we can do is apply due diligence in identifying the parties, making sure they're legitimate organisations. I mean, that's all we can do.
Thank you very much. Ingrid, did you want to say something? No? Okay. So there was one question from the gentleman from Nigeria that was about training, for AFRINIC. We absolutely do have a training program, and tomorrow you'll hear more about it, and some of our people are actually in the room. Mukom, yes. Can you please stand up so the gentleman can see you? And you can actually, Mukom can give you all the information about what happens inside AFRINIC on trainings. So please help me give my panelists a round of applause, and to you all for sitting here. Thank you very much. And thanks very much to Elise for staying, awake so late to follow us. That was really wonderful. We thank you very much, Elise. And so this is it for now, and I thank you all. And the next session is going to start here, I guess in about 15 minutes, if you want to make it, and it's going to be about the policy development process. You'll have a series of presentations that will delve into some of the aspects that you heard here this morning in the AFRINIC region. So hope you all come with lots of questions. Thank you very much. It's actually break time. If you wish to have a small coffee or tea,